What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Devin Zahn, and I am the host, your host, of our new project, Tales for the Dark. This is a podcast where we are going to be reading internet horror stories, creepypastas, and true crime, basically to, sate your appetite, for lack of better words. So, before we get into it, normally we have a person here that we'll have as our partner. Gabe is his name. He's not here for this episode. We didn't get a chance to record the other day, so we're basically going to be doing this by ourselves for this episode. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Sagittarius. I like long walks on the beach. Yeah, just kidding. But I did have an experience as a kid that really kind of introduced me into the world of the paranormal and the creepy. If you guys have ever heard of the Hat Man, the Shadow Man, he goes by many different names. Basically, I had an experience with him as a kid where I was reading a book, sitting on my bed, and he basically walked out of my bathroom, stood in my doorway staring at me. We'll go more into that in a different podcast that I'm actually going to be featured on later this month. But for now, that's really all you need to know about me. I have had plenty of experience with the paranormal. Even my parents, as I was growing up, they were paranormal investigators as well, part of a group called Heartland Paranormal. And I also got my inspiration for this podcast from two people that actually do their own podcasts, are also part of the Heartland Paranormal group with my parents, Kurt and Krista. You may know this podcast as The Stranger Sessions. They're also on Facebook, so there's your free plug, Kurt and Krista. Hope you enjoy it. Basically, this podcast, like I said, is going to be about reading scary stories online. Normally we would have more of a banter in between this, but we don't really have much to say beyond what I have already told you guys. So we have a kind of special thing we're going to be doing too here. I kind of want to pay homage to Kurt and Krista for their podcast, The Strange Sessions, again, free plug. So we're going to be doing a taste test. We're going to be doing kind of a strange food every episode, kind of trying to spicing up our palate, if you will. So we're going to be doing that, so stick around, because I am about to get this food out. I guess it's not a titillating 20 like they call it, but we do have our own version of a taste test. This is going to be something I'm going to try and do every episode too, where we get something that's new, unique, and it's just something to fill the time, because I got to have some sort of relationship with you guys. So today, and there will be a picture, I'm actually going to take a picture right now. Am I still recording? I am. Because I'm actually, for the first couple, okay, I don't even know if that worked. But yeah, we are going to be kind of following in Kurt and Krista's footsteps, paying homage to them, I guess is a good way of putting it. But we are going to be doing taste tests every episode, basically of strange and random foods that we can find. Today's, I just took a picture of it, is Van Holten's sour pickle. Yeah. The description says tart and tangy flavor. So it's a pickle in a pocket, basically. You can find at Shell gas stations, sometimes Quick Trip. Yeah, without further ado, let's give it a shot here. I'm going to tear it open, and I will let you guys know how horrible it is. I've never had one of these before, so this is going to be a momentous occasion for us. I'm going to spill this everywhere, aren't I? Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't even know this is a good idea. Alright, I am now gonna give it a shot. This thing looks kind of brown, but I think that's how it's supposed to be. It says it's good. I don't know. Ugh. You could definitely get that tart and tanginess. Oh my god. It's like eating a moldy salt and vinegar chip. Ugh. But with pickle juice. I can't say I'm a fan. Because if I did, I would be lying. I was actually planning on drinking this pickle juice because I normally do that with this, but oh god, now I see why Kurt and Krista don't do this, like doing pickle stuff. Oh god, I'm gonna take another bite. Oh yeah. Second bite did not make it better. That was goddamn. I don't even know if I like it. Oh god, I just almost choked on it. Okay, well, we can say we tried that. Can't say I want to try it again. I don't even know why I brought the plate. Okay. Okay. Real thing. Oh god, it's gonna be in my mouth the entire time. Okay, so out of 10, that would be like, oh gosh. I don't even want to say 4, man. I'm gonna go with 3. That was. You definitely can tell that's a sour one. Okay. Oh, God. I need to... beer's not going to make this better. I'm going to take a drink of my beer. I'm kind of like Kurt in that way, too, where my first couple episodes, I'm need a beer to calm myself down doing this thing. My God. Okay, so Van Holten Sour Pickle. Would I recommend? Absolutely not. I should have got the garlic one. That is my bad. So let me just take a drink of this. I need to get this taste out of my mouth. Ugh. Alright, well, let's get right into our first story, I guess. We don't really have that much in the way of banter this episode because it is just me here. So let's get right into the story. This is our first one. A very famous creepypasta entitled The Smiling Man. I will credit the author at the end of the story. That way, you know, they can get their credit and everything. So, let's get right into it. This is The Smiling Man. About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the U.S. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in this city were polite. When all that changed in just a few minutes on one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police-patrolled park quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him at the far end of the street. On my side was the silhouette of a man, dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance-walking, heading straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me by. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky, and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still, until I could make out his face. His eyes were open, wide, and wild. Head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he got any closer. I took my eyes off him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back, and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing, and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved, until I noticed him. He had crossed the street, and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time staring at him, and then he started moving towards me again. He took giant, exaggerated tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say at this point I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or my cell phone or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept towards me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper. What? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to me at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance walking away. Just like that, not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go, until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight, and then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time, he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side of the road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile. But he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night, and I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that is a very, very scary thing to see. Alright, well that actually is our first story. Actually a pretty quick one, it seems to be. That is credited to Blue_Title. He is the author of this story, and well, what do I think about this story? It is one of the more famous ones out there, to be honest. This is probably... I chose these stories before I did this podcast to read, specifically because I wanted to do some more famous stories for the first episode to kind of, draw people in, all that stuff. But what do I think of this story as a whole? Out of 10, it's... I'd give it an 8. Probably a solid 8. I wouldn't quite go to a 9. This is definitely one of the better creepypasta stories I've ever read. And this is a really famous one, I can tell you that right now, because Kurt and Krista from the Strange Sessions podcast, they actually covered this as well. And so it's basically becoming a much more well-known story. And actually there have been actual sightings of this around the country, around the world, to be honest. The Smiling Man is actually what I would believe to be a tulpa. Tulpa is basically a creature that is born of beliefs of a mass amount of people. So, say, like Slenderman. You know, between the Slenderman killings in my home state of Wisconsin, with the 2 girls stabbing their one friend on a bike trail, to, the Rake. Cryptids like this, I mean, they exist. I'm sure there is stuff out there we haven't discovered yet, but I mean, for the most part, I think it might be the supernatural being that we're seeing here called a tulpa. In this specific story, it is fictional, so this didn't happen. But there were reports after this happened of it actually happening, if that makes sense. So, in my mind, it's not that the Smiling Man actually exists. It's that this tulpa, this creature that is born of many people believing in it, many people knowing about it, that is the problem. The Smiling Man might exist now, and that's because of this supernatural being. As for the story itself, though, writing-wise, what would I give it out of 10? 8 out of 10, I said, right? So, it is a great story. I can definitely see how this is one of the better creepypastas, and how this one is so well regarded by the creepypasta community, and, for that matter, the paranormal supernatural community as well. Is it the best story I've ever read? That I can't say, because it's not true. It is a great story. It's a short story, for sure. I'm barely at 10 minutes on between the story and the review here, so I mean, it's good. It's a good story. Let me know what you guys think too. I mean, send me comments. You go to my Facebook page if you want. You can curse me out for having such a horrible podcast, such a horrible reading style, something like that. But let me know what you guys think of this story as a whole, because it is a great one. It is one of the best stories out there, but I'm only giving it an 8 because I want more, Like, it's a great story. They used the same terminology a little bit too much, I would say. I mean, they can only say very, very so many times in a story before it sounds a little cheesy. But, I mean, that's just me being critical. So, let me know what you guys think. Put a comment down below, right on our Facebook page. You can find us at Tales for the Dark at Facebook. It's a dash scary internet stories or creepy internet stories. I think it's creepy internet stories. I'm sorry, this is my first podcast, so I'm still learning. But yeah, and let me know what you guys think. I mean, I thought it was a good story. I don't think it was the best. I kind of like the next one a little better. Maybe it kind of will give me the same reaction where I thought it was better when I first read it a long time ago. But I think we're going to get right into the next story here. So let me just pull that up on my phone real quick. Alright, so got it pulled up on my phone here. Just have to scroll, okay. Alright, ladies and gents, time to get to our second story. This is also a very, very well-known creepypasta off the Creepypasta wiki site, and it's actually one of my favorite stories too. This story is called Squidward's Suicide. Now, granted, this is, all these are going to be very graphic stories, but this one is pretty messed up, so obviously listener discretion advised and everything. But without further ado, let's get right into it. This is Squidward's Suicide. I just want to start off by saying, if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There just isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005 for my degree in animation. And it wasn't paid, of course. Most internships aren't. But it did have some perks beyond education. To adults, it might not seem like a big one, but most kids at the time would shit themselves if they got it. Now, since I worked directly with the editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes days before they aired. I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had very recently made the SpongeBob movie, and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of her creativity, so it took them longer to start up the season. But the delay lasted longer than that for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the Series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back for several months. Me and 2 other interns were in the editing room alongside the animators and the sound editors for the final cut. We received the copy that was supposed to be Fear of a Krabby Patty and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that it isn't final yet, animators often put up a mock title card, sort of an inside joke for us, with phony, oftentimes lewd titles such as How Sex Doesn't Work, instead of, Rockabye Vivali. When SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scallop, that's the episode. Nothing particularly funny, but work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card, Squidward's Suicide, we really didn't think it was more than a morbid joke. One of the interns did a small throat laugh at it. The happy-go-lucky music, as it normal, played. The story began with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside, and Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down, as he has a concert that night. He needs to practice. SpongeBob says, okay, and goes to see Sandy with his friend Patrick. The bubble splash screen comes on, and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. And this is where things seem to begin to seem off. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. At this point, the sound is synced up with animation, so yes, that is common, but when he stops playing, the sound finishes as if the skip never happened. There is a slight murmuring in the crowd before they begin to boo him. Not normal cartoon booing that is common in the show, but you could very clearly hear malice in it. Squidward's in full frame and looks visibly afraid. The shot goes to the crowd with SpongeBob in center frame, and he too is booing, very much unlike him. That isn't the oddest thing, though. What is odd is everyone had hyper-realistic eyes, very detailed, clearly not shots of real people's eyes, but something a bit more real than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't really question its appeal to children yet. The shot goes to Squidward sitting on the edge of his bed, looking very forlorn. The view of his porthole is of a night sky, so it isn't very long after that concert. The unsettling part is at this point, there is no sound. Literally no sound. Not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. It's as if the speakers were turned off, though their status showed them working perfectly, so he just sat there, blinking. In this silence for about 30 seconds, he started to sob softly. He put his hands over his eyes and cried quietly for a full minute, maybe more. All the while, a sound in the background very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible. It sounded like a slight breeze through a forest. The screen slowly begins to zoom in on his face, but really slowly. And by slow, I mean it's only noticeable if you look at shots 10 seconds apart side by side. His sobbing grows louder, more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a bit, as if it twists in on itself. For a split second, then it's back to normal. So, the wind through the trees sound gets slowly louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is this sound and Squidward sobbing sounded real. As if the sound wasn't coming from the speakers, but as if the speakers were holes the sound was coming through from the other side. As good as sound as the studio likes to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be that good to produce sound of that quality. Below the sound of the wind and sobbing, very faint, something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second, so you had a hard time pinning it. We watched it twice, so pardon me if things sound too specific, but I've had time to think about this. After 30 seconds of it, the screen blurred and twitched violently, and something flashed over the screen, as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewound frame by frame. What we saw was horrible. It was a still photo of a dead child. Couldn't have been more than 6. The face was mangled and bloody. One eye dangling over his upturned face popped. He was naked down to his underwear, his stomach crudely cut open, his entrails laying right beside him. He was laying on some pavement. It looked like a road. The most upsetting part was that there was a shadow of the photographer. There was no crime tape, no evidence tags or markers, and the angle was completely off for a shot designed to be evidence. It would seem that the photographer was the person responsible for the child's death. We were, of course, mortified, but pressed on, hoping that it was just some sort of sick joke. The screen flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing, louder than before, and half body and frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done in hyper-realistic style, looking as if you touched it you could get blood on your fingers. The wind sounded now as if it were that of a gale blowing through the forest. There was even a snapping sound of branches, the laughing, the deep baritone lasting at longer intervals and coming more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and showed a single-frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were. But he knew he had to do it. This time, the photo was that of what appeared to be a little girl, no older than the first child. She was laying on her stomach this time, her berets in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was popped out and popped. Her left eye was naked except for her underpants. Her entrails were piled on top of her, above another cruel cut along her back. Again, the body was on the street, and the photographer's shadow was visible, very similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit, and one intern, the only female in the room, had to run out. The show resumed. About 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward went silent, as did all sound. Like it was when this scene started. He put his tentacles down, and his eyes were now down in hyper-realism, like the others in the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot, and pulsating eyes. He just stared at the screen, as if watching the viewer. After about 10 seconds, he started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing, loud, and most fear-inducing of all of his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did the deep voice laughing, and this time the still photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it on the 4th and backed it up. This time the photo was of a boy, about the same age, but this time the scene was different. The entrails were just being pulled out from a stomach wound by a large hand. The right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling down it. The animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but the next one was different. But we couldn't tell what. He went on to the next. Same thing. We went back to the first and played them quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animating and sound editors gasped at the screen. The 5 frames were not as if they were 5 different photos. They were played out as if they were frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift the guts. We saw the kid's eyes focus on it. We even saw the 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. The lead editor told us to stop. He had to call in the creator to see this, Mr. Hillenberg? Yeah, he arrived in about 15 minutes. He was confused as to why he was called down there. So the editor just continued the episode. Once the few frames were shown, all screaming, all sound again stopped. Squidward was just staring at the viewer. Full frame of the face for about 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out and that deep voice said, "Do it!" And we see in Squidward's hands a shotgun. What? He immediately puts the gun in his mouth and he pulls the trigger. Realistic blood and brain matter splats all over the wall behind him and his bed. And he flies back with the force. The last 5 seconds of this episode show his body on the bed. On one side, one eye dangling on what's left of his head on above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg is obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the hell was going on. Most people left the room at this point, so it was just a handful of us to watch it again. Viewing the episode twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind and caused me horrible nightmares. Jesus, I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was the file was edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio to here. The CTO was called in to analyze when it happened. The analysis of the file did show it was edited over by a new material. However, the timestamp of it was a mere 24 seconds before we even started viewing it. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware, as well as glitches, as if the timestamp may have glitched and showed the wrong time. But everything checked out fine. I mean, we don't know how it happened, and to this day, nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child seen was identified, and no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues in the photos. I never believed in unexplainable phenomena before, but now that I have something happen and can't prove anything about it, beyond an anecdotal evidence, I think twice about things. Alright, well, that's the end of Squidward's suicide. I'm sorry I stuttered a little bit through that. That was, there were a lot of big words in that. Ugh. But, what do I think of this episode? Well, Squidward's suicide is a creepypasta that is considered in a separate genre. I mean, creepypastas have different genres, even themselves, too. This one would be classified under a lost tape creepypasta. There's stuff like this for, like, Mickey Mouse, too. And, actually, there's a couple Mickey Mouse ones out there. There's Ed, Edd and Eddy. There's, you name it. There's probably a creepypasta out there. There's many creepypastas even for video games that I'm probably going to be doing. Probably actually planning to do one in my next video, next episode. But, it was a really, really good story. This is absolutely and always will be one of my favorite episodes. I did ad-lib a little bit because the one criticism I do have about this creepypasta is that the grammar is... I don't mean to be a grammar police, but the grammar is kind of atrocious. It goes back and forth between first person and third person, I would say at least a dozen times throughout this story. It's kind of hard to keep track. So that's kind of why I ad-libbed some of it. There is no credit at the bottom of this page on... here. I mean, I can go to the website, so let me just double check here. But Squidward Suicide is probably another one of the most famous creepypastas out there. They've made mock animation movies off of this. They've done everything from like graphic novels to obviously the story itself to movies on YouTube, kind of amateur animations, basically. So this thing is very, very well known. It is a good story. It is a great story. Mediocre in the writing sense of it. I can't say too much because I can guarantee you I can't write for crap myself. So, but out of 10, I would give this as well an 8. I'd probably give it a 9 if it wasn't for the grammar. It definitely caught me off guard a couple times in this, and you can kind of hear that as I stutter through it a little bit. But I'm pretty much reading these things word for word. But there is no credit. There is no credit on this one. It does not have an author at the bottom of it. There's like actually a crap ton of contributors, so I don't even know if this is written by a bunch of people or... But I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good story. So this would be the point where we do any closing topics, any stuff like that, because we are only going to be doing the 2 stories today. But let me know what you guys think of this one too, because this is a very famous story, and a lot of people I know of it. So I want to know what you thought of it. It was a little ad-libbed, like I said, but I was just trying to correct how it was written. I think I might actually post these stories to my Facebook page as well, just so you guys can get a chance to read it word for word. But I don't really know what else there is to say. We got new episodes coming out hopefully every week. I'm going to be doing 2 stories every time. We'll be doing a taste test every time. We're going to obviously give our shout outs to not only everyone joining our Facebook page, but to the 2 people that really inspired me to get this entire thing started, and that would be Kurt and Krista from the Strange Sessions podcast. So if you guys like this or even remotely liked it, theirs is 30 times better. I will tell you that right now. Go subscribe to them too, because they cover they don't do like scary stories like I do, but they do true crime, paranormal, pretty much everything paranormal. So give them a shout out. Yeah, I'll give them a shout out. Kurt and Krista, that's for you. Free plug. And you can expect that pretty much every episode. But for shout outs for today, we got, since this is my first episode, we got kind of a few, but I will go through the list. I will only use first names because to protect privacy, unless you give me permission to give you a shout out in your full name. But starting out, we got Michelle. Thank you for liking the Facebook page, and thank you for liking the podcast. Thank you very much. I actually work with you, so I already know how awesome you are, but thank you very much. Your support means the world to me, and that kind of leads into my next one, Sin. He is also a person I work with. Awesome name, by the way, S-I-N, that's it, Sin. But it's kind of ironic, because he's also one of the nicest people I know. So thank you very much, Sin, for liking my page, liking the podcast, and yeah. The next one would actually be both Kurt and Krista. So Again, I gave you guys a shout out, but I'm more than happy to give you another one. Thank you guys very much for supporting me in this. I know I am probably not the best person to record podcasts. I am very much an amateur, and you guys have probably heard it by now. But I really appreciate all the support you guys have given me, to do this. You guys are basically my mentors. So shout outs to you guys. Next one, we got Kaylee. So Kaylee also went to school with you. Very awesome. Very nice. And, she is actually part of my paranormal group that I'm trying to get together too. So big shout out to you. It really means a lot that you're willing to support me in all these extra projects that I'm trying to put together. So thank you very much. Same thing with Nika, my old boss. Very cool. She liked the page about 14 hours ago. Very, very much appreciative of you too. I honestly, I don't think I would have been here without you. So you mean the world to me. Just remember that. Marina, one of my new friends. She is very nice. She is very cool. And I ran into her at Walmart the other day. It's very nice to see you again, obviously. And I'm very happy that you joined the page. So thank you very much for your support. I'm very happy to have you, as always. And, I'll probably talk to you later, honestly. We also get Kate. She is old high school crush, I guess you could say. Yes, I'm admitting that on here. She's also one of my old closest friends. So, Kate, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for joining. Sorry for sounding creepy. And thank you again for listening. I really appreciate any support I can get, and your support means the world. So, and that also goes for my next shout out, Gabe. Gabe is also going to be on this podcast from time to time too. Sorry for that thump. He has been my best friend for God knows how long. It's been 6-7 years. So thank you very much for your support, Gabe, too. I can't wait to have you on the podcast. You're going to be awesome. I know it. And I can't wait to he's actually getting married, so I can't wait to actually be there for that. So thank you very much, dude. And I appreciate your support on this, too. My sister even joined. So Brittany, thank you. I kind of expected your support anyway, but no, I'm just kidding. I love you. We get along. We used to not really get along as a kid, but we still loved each other. We still love each other now, but we also get along very much now too. So thank you very much, sis. I love you. And thank you for supporting me on this. We also got our own podcast coming too, so don't think I'm just abandoning that. My adopted sister Amanda, sister to our also adopted sister Ashley. Very happy to have you. Thank you for supporting me. I know this might not be your sort of thing, but I'm very happy that you decided to take the time and give us a look, So, and then we got 2 people from my all other side project, 89-Bit Productions, which is a video game news and video outlet that we also have on Facebook. You can look that up, 89-Bit Productions. We have Mitch and Sebastian Seabass. I love you guys. You guys have been my friends for a long time too, and they are completely my personality, sarcastic as hell, but also a heart of gold. So, love you guys. Thank you very much for supporting me on this. I know I haven't been exactly active in 89-bit a whole lot lately, but I'm finally starting to get back into the nitty-gritty of things, starting to get my video editing skills back. So, thank you guys very much, all of everyone I mentioned, for joining the group. Next time I will, I'm actually going to keep track of who joined now so I can kind of keep track of who I need to shout out for next time. Here, let me do that real fast. Oh my gosh. There we go. So that's pretty much all we got for this episode today. So it might seem upbeat, it might seem awkwardly unupbeat at the same time, but this is my podcast, Tales for the Dark, a creepy internet story podcast. So if you guys did like this, you know what to do. Subscribe, comment what you thought about our 2 stories today, and tell me, what you would like me to talk about in our banter times, because we need to fill the time somehow. Also, give me suggestions on what creepy foods to eat, because I'll do anything but spiders. Or needles. Alright. Well, from my little bat cave, I am Devin. Devin's on. And this is Tales for the Dark. I hope you guys liked the video, or like the podcast. I have to get used to saying that I used to do videos. And I will listen to you guys and see you guys in the next podcast. Don't be too afraid.